Good morning, everybody. Good morning, good morning, good morning. So you were worried about the weather, so we made it so hot in here that we have you sweating already. And some of you thought it was a walk. I won't say what some of the others thought it was. Oh, but listen, good morning. We are so grateful to have you. Welcome as we sort of journey together from our humble beginnings to this audacious vision that we have of ourselves, for ourselves, and of this great university, the University of Massachusetts, Boston, and all of our campuses this morning we celebrate. To all of our elected officials that are here, to our great Senate President, thank you, and all the others that are here, our distinguished alumni, all of our alumni are distinguished. Thank you for being here today. Our current faculty, our retired faculty, our area college presidents, all of my colleagues and their representatives, thank you for journeying here, being with us today, hanging out. Mr. President, thank you, and your beautiful bride for being here, President Bulger. We're so grateful to have you front row and center. To my Chancellor colleagues, Chancellor Collins, Sabaswamy, and all of the chancellors that are here and not here. Chancellor Grossman would be here. She's out doing some great work for the university, and Chancellor Meehan. But also, we have Chancellor Jean McCormick here with us today. We have her back on campus, and we're so grateful to have you, Jean, here as well. And so, good morning. And to all of our staff and faculty who are standing in the back, there's room. Come on in. Come on in. So good morning and welcome to the University of Massachusetts Boston campus on the Common celebration of our 50th anniversary. We are so excited. It feels so good to be 50. You know, as I've been telling the campus, 50 is the new 30. And so we also have someone today who's also turning 50. It's his birthday today, our president of the University of Massachusetts system, Robert Corrett. 50, 50, 50. Bob, 50 looks good on you, man. How about that procession? We came down the State House steps, out the front door, came down the street, shut off the street. Oh my God. The University of Massachusetts, Boston, taking over this common in this city. Faculty, students, administrators, staff, stakeholders, and community leaders from all over this Commonwealth walking down to this Boston Common. That speaks powerfully to the creation, and not only the creation, but the constitution of this great university, the University of Massachusetts, Boston, the capital city's public research university. Now, it was, oh yes, okay. I'll give you some pauses. It was just a short walk from the State House to our spot on the Commons, but it's been a walk teeming with historic meaning and with symbolic power for us. The State House is the place where the grand notion of the public university in this great city of Boston made its transition from an idea into reality. When Governor Peabody signed legislation to establish the University of Massachusetts Boston, that was a wonderful day in July of 1964. This, the oldest city park in the nation, referred to as the Commons, is an indicator of public space or the public sphere. It refers to the natural resources made accessible to all members of a society, such as air, water, or in the case of the Boston Common, it was a pasture for cows. Today, its aesthetic beauty, designed to be enjoyed by everyone, speaks articulately to the importance of making a society's cultural resources, including higher education, accessible to the public. Our movement from the State House to the Common today tells that story with profound clarity. Now, we have brought the University of Massachusetts Boston to the Common along with a few friends, but literally today, and metaphorically today, we have established a university open to all, especially first-generation students who have the audacity to dream, to become doctors. Thank you for that win. To become doctors, nurses, lawyers, chemists, teachers, professors, good husbands and wives, and students and partners, students from more than 140 countries, who dream of leading banks, businesses, becoming writers, artists, becoming great human beings. They pursue the American dream. They strive to actualize their full potential. The University of Massachusetts Boston is the Common for transformation, a place where the alchemy of their audacity and persistence mingles with great teaching and deep learning fused into realized aspirations. Like so many of our students, the University of Massachusetts Boston had humble beginnings, tethered to an audacious vision. 1964 was a time of growing political turmoil, civil rights activism, and urban unrest. That is why today, as we come to this Common, we have all of our family here. All of our family, highlighted by the first wave of baby boomers filling the roles of colleges and universities back then. We started on our journey together, amidst concern by some and outright resistance of others. State Representative, the great late Robert Quinn, and Senator George Keneally dared to assert that kids raised in the rough and tumble of Boston neighborhoods deserve what many other kids received out of privilege. They talked about a time when kids from the city would trip over opportunities on their way to higher education and push through the legislation. It took all night. That resulted in the founding of the university, which Governor Endicott Peabody signed on June 18, 1964. Now, always present in those modest and unpretentious times, my friends, was a soaring and unfettered vision of the university's purpose and what the university would become. Newly inaugurated Chancellor at that time, John W. Ryan, in his founding day convocation address, declared imperiously, "We have an obligation to see that opportunities we offer are indeed equal to the best." He moved from there to signal our guiding purpose as an urban institution, saying that the urban university must stand with the city, must serve and lead where the battle is. This is what the University of Massachusetts at Boston must do. That mandate, to be equal to the best and to stand in support of our urban communities, allowed us to flourish in our humble beginnings in a renovated gas building. See, it doesn't matter that we teach in rooms that raindrops were falling on our head. From a gas building to transform to a dump. Most of the time I talk about it, I don't talk about it as a dump on campus, they know it. But today we're going to call it a dump because we've come a long way from that dump. And it was a wasteland, but it had a beautiful ocean front. So we turned it into a beautiful oceanfront destination. A beautiful oceanfront destination where presidents of countries and prime ministers stop to share their messages along with all of those from the neighborhoods of Boston, regardless of what their title is, homeless and or living in great homes. They're welcomed out on that peninsula. It's become a destination point, and you should be proud of that 50 years later. So we finally have decided to share our message with the world. Long before Keith Motley thought about coming across this street and going out to the ocean, this was a great university. But now we're telling people about it and sharing it with the world. And we're going to proceed on this unending journey to quality and distinction that has always characterized this great university. It's amazing to consider the vision, imagination, and the persistence that have led to this state of excellence. And we use this golden anniversary to celebrate the wisdom and the foresight of those who brought us into being and carried us to this place. Every now and then, along that journey, you need to stop, take a moment to see how far you have come. And so we're stopping at 50 to do that. It's surely a milestone for us that bids us time to pause, reflect, celebrate, but we will never, never, ever stop. Pausing in time out only gives us an opportunity to reflect. And when we take the time to reflect, we bring together great thoughts, and together with that vision, we will create this great university that our founders envisioned, you have toiled to make happen, and I am so proud to lead. So we also use this occasion to beckon everyone. We are, after all, the public university, to envision what's next. We have higher student persistence and graduation rates to reach and to exceed. That's what's next. We have 3 new facilities opening in the coming year and even more buildings to erect, including residence halls. That's what's next. We have more academic programs to enrich and expand. That is what's next. We have high-performing students to both attract and cultivate. That's what's next. We have young women and men anxious to take their place as skilled leaders of industry and contributors to the culture. That's what's next. We have communities, businesses, and government partners to lock arms with, to face together the new challenges of our communities and face all of our challenges and sit down at the table and make a difference with each other. This Commonwealth and the world, that's what's next. There are new discoveries and innovations incubating in our classrooms, our labs, and our Venture Development Center, calling to our community of scholars to steward them into our consciousness. We have heights to reach that most who are here today could not yet envision. Nevertheless, the process has begun. And if you don't know it, we are not your great-grandfather's University of Massachusetts, Boston. So whatever your notion was of us, you'll see it today in all that we do. The energy has been released. I can't hold it back anymore. I've tried, but I've let the energy go, and it's coming. The imagination has been released. And this Commonwealth's capital city university indeed will be equal to the best. My friends, that's where we're headed, so that 50 years from now, perhaps a new generation will proceed again to this stately and historic green and wonder anew at how far this enterprise will have advanced. So, our procession this morning points symbolically to a sacred responsibility. In response to this calling as Boston's public university, we are commissioned to minister to the highest and best human values of our community, Commonwealth, and the world. For it is out of these exalted values that the audacity flows to dream new dreams and to see new visions. I encourage every single one of you, be you faculty, staff, or students, elected officials or political appointees, citizens of the city, or people who think I've talked too long this morning. I encourage you to embrace this public university, to embrace public higher education as a sacred trust and a noble responsibility, and to help us further embody that nobility in the work of this university, your university, the University of Massachusetts, Boston. I am honored to serve you, this campus community, and I look forward to us continuing to move forward with our excellence and building on that excellence together. Thank you all for joining us this morning. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's have a beautiful day. The sun is out. Oh, I'm supposed to introduce folks. Next coming up is our young man whose birthday is today. Oh, before I do that, this beautiful lady in the pink. She wore pink so I wouldn't forget to do this. Is sitting in the front row, and she is the reason why your chancellor is smart enough to do this and not sit down before he has done it, to introduce my wife, I said life, my life, good turn, my life, Angela Motley. The beauty is evident, the inner beauty is what keeps me there, but the brilliance is what just, So anyway, I'm sorry, man, you told me to go back up to the mic. So good morning again. It's my honor at this time to bring forward the president of our great university system, whose favorite campus it is for the next 3 hours as he moves on his bus tour, the University of Massachusetts, Boston, but Robert Corrett, our president. Come on up.
I didn't ask him to introduce me. I just asked him if I was next, but doesn't take much to get Keith going, as you've noticed. And I appreciate the birthday wishes. It is the new 50, unfortunately, not the old 50 in terms of the celebration today. But let me also join with the Chancellor in welcoming the elected officials who are here today. Senate President Murray, who had to leave but was with us until a moment ago, and Senate Majority Leader Stan Rosenberg, a proud alumnus of the University of Massachusetts. We have also with us, representing the Governor, Secretary Matt Malone, who will be speaking shortly. For all the other elected officials that are here, for the distinguished guests and speakers that are here, alumni, faculty, staff, students, and friends of the university, the entire University of Massachusetts Boston family, and my fellow chancellors who have been mentioned earlier, Michael Collins and Kumbal Sumaswamy. We appreciate their attendance. You know, the Chancellor mentioned that this is the oldest park in the country, and it's fitting that the University of Massachusetts Boston bring this semi-centennial celebration here to the Boston Commons. This is also the point where the Freedom Trail begins, another symbolic link to what UMass Boston does for its students. UMass Boston may not be the oldest campus in the UMass system, but it is in so many ways one of the most important parts of the system. It's a diverse and welcoming place that embodies a strong spirit of community. It exemplifies the best of Boston and what Boston wants to do and has wanted to do for its citizens. Both the Commons and the campus are indispensable forces in the life of this great city and the Commonwealth, helping to educate, helping to inspire, helping to educate people for the future. And the future is not that far ahead of us on a day-to-day basis. It changes so quickly. Today, the chairman of the UMass board, Henry Thomas, who's sitting behind me here and will be speaking in a moment, and I embarked on the fourth bus tour since I became president 4 years ago. The first bus tour was aimed at listening to what the Commonwealth wanted more from UMass, not so much what UMass was doing for the Commonwealth at that point, but what more was needed and where we needed to put more energy. That bus tour went so well, I felt, and from the feedback I received, that we've continued to have a bus tour each year in the month of October. And each year we've had a different theme. And this year's theme is impact, the impact of the University of Massachusetts, with a particular focus on the impact of the UMass alums, not only in this state and across the entire nation, but globally. There are over 450,000 UMass alums around the globe. There are over 266,000 UMass alums who live and work here in Massachusetts. More than 54,000 of those alums who live and work here in Massachusetts are graduates of this great university, the University of Massachusetts, Boston. And as I take this 3-day bus tour, I'll be meeting a number of those alums. One of them is with us today. Her name is Maureen Melton, and she's a UMass Boston grad. She's the archivist at the Museum of Fine Arts and serves also as the Susan Morse Hills Director of Libraries and Archives, as well as the museum's historian. She received both a bachelor's and a master's degree from UMass Boston, and is symbolic of the type of individual that has come through the doors of this great institution and has had her life, in this case, her life transformed by what this institution was able to do with her and for her. Thank you. Among our 5 campuses, UMass Boston stands out in so many ways. It has a unique mission. It is the only public research university in Massachusetts' largest city, and the Chancellor has used that theme over and over again. It has the most diverse student body of any campus in New England. That student body represents over 140 countries, and over 90 different languages are spoken on the campus. If you want a view of the future, visit the UMass Boston Campus Center, and you get a view of the future. The campus is nationally recognized in many ways, most recently as an innovation and entrepreneurial campus by the Association of Public Land-Grant Universities. But it's also recognized for its engagement in partnerships with the community through the Carnegie Foundation and through the President's Honor Roll on community engagement. It's a campus that fosters innovation, fosters education, and fosters economic opportunity for everyone, both home and abroad. It has a growing reputation every day for excellence in academics and research. UMass Boston can take at least 20%, if not more, of the credit for the University of Massachusetts just last week being named one of the world's top 100 universities. UMass was ranked 91st in the Times of London higher education poll this year. We are considered a premier institution internationally. UMass also ranked 19th among all public universities in the United States, and the line that I love best, the #1 public university in New England. Thank you, UMass Boston. All of us that are involved in higher education for many, many years have worked hard in the public sector to maintain access and affordability for our students, and we continue to work hard to do that here in Massachusetts. But we also do it with a strong focus on quality, and I think you heard that in the Chancellor's remarks. Access, affordability with quality is what it's all about in the public sector, and UMass is showing that that is possible with this ranking of the top public university in New England, still affordable to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts citizens. As the Chancellor indicated, as president of the 5-campus system, and I do want to welcome President Bolger for being here, I build on the past as those that follow me will, and we appreciate all that he did for the system. But today I must tell you, I'm very proud of UMass Boston. Today, for a bit of time, perhaps most of the day, it is my favorite UMass campus. And Keith Motley is always my favorite UMass Chancellor, because when you're that size, you just got to give the guy respect. I'm extremely grateful to the leadership the Chancellor's provided. I'm even more grateful for the vision that he's provided for this campus. He has taken a campus that was doing wonderful things and taken it, as we like to say, to the next level. And we know it's not him by himself. It's him with the entire community, the entire UMass community, with support from the board and support from the legislature and support from the governor. But it's happening at UMass Boston. All you have to do is visit that campus for a brief moment of time to see the change that is occurring. Chancellor Motley, we thank you for your leadership. UMass Boston, we're proud of everything you've accomplished. Have a great birthday.
And you make sure you have a great birthday too, man. So again, good morning, everybody. I am honored to introduce to some of you, but who's no stranger to this university community, someone that we're very proud of, the chairman of our board, Henry Thomas. Come on up, Henry.
Thank you, Chancellor Motley. Chancellor, I think if you confer with your colleague, Chancellor Collins, who's the chancellor of our medical school, he will let you know that there's sometimes a disconnect between the mind and the body. So your mind told you one thing, but your body was telling you something else, and that's the reason why you were sweating. Your body was sweating because it knew that if you sat down without recognizing your wife, Angie, there was going to be a price to pay once you got home. So take heed. It's an honor and delight to be part of this auspicious celebration. I want to join President Corrett in his acknowledging all of our special guests and speakers and elected officials and this great high-energy audience today of alumni, faculty, staff, students, and friends who have joined us for this landmark anniversary celebration. I bring greetings on behalf of the University of Massachusetts Board of Trustees. If I seem to speak with a little extra enthusiasm today, it's likely because what you just heard from President Corrett, that UMass ranked 19th among public universities in the United States and first among public universities in New England in the prestigious World University rankings done by London Times Higher Education in the magazine's annual survey. Most impressively, UMass climbed 41 places since last year's ranking, and UMass is now ranked, as you heard, 91st in the world among all public and private universities. Imagine that. But wait a minute, we don't have to imagine anymore. We're here. We're here. So, and that doesn't happen it happens just because there are tons of people who make up this university as faculty, as staff, as students, as administrators, that makes the engine run at high efficiency levels. This is a major accomplishment for the university, and it's indicative of the work of those students and faculty and staff across all 5 campuses. And it speaks volumes about why we're here today celebrating the 50th anniversary of UMass Boston. When I think about the powerful legacy UMass Boston has already created in 1/2 a century, I'm consumed with joy and expectation. Joy because of the wonderful, the awesome things that happen to students, faculty, and staff while in this web of higher education at UMass Boston. My expectation is that this great institution will continue to serve students from Boston and beyond in a in an excellent fashion. UMass Boston and what happens here is a major contributory reason why our 5-campus system is now seen as one of the best universities in the world. From the oldest campus in Amherst to the youngest or newest campus right here in the capital city. The oneness of institutional purpose and mission and the uniqueness of execution makes UMass a destination place for higher learning. As a member of the University Board of Trustees and now its chairman, I have been honored to witness and participate in the growth and success of UMass Boston, a campus whose humble beginnings were in a temporary location in downtown Boston. However, UMass Boston grew and flourished, and now there's no university campus anywhere in New England quite like UMass Boston. Whether a student is a first generation or fifth generation, UMass Boston takes students where they are and changes their trajectory of their lives. I congratulate Chancellor Keith Motley for overseeing this important milestone in the history of this university's campus. I am grateful for his leadership, and I can only imagine and anticipate the success of UMass Boston will achieve over the next 50 years. And of course, he will be still at the helm. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman Thomas. We appreciate you. Thank you for your support, for your hard work. You're everywhere in this system, and we appreciate that. Now I have the honor of bringing our Secretary of Education before you, Matthew Malone. Dr. Malone is someone who I've had the honor of knowing for a long time, a few decades, and so grateful to have the opportunity to work with him and to know him in this role. Come on forward, Matt. Thank you.
You put Keith in a robe, in a tent, outside in a park, and you are having a revival. I don't have to wait till Sunday, people. He has been my friend. 17 years we've been friends, since we both played basketball at Northeastern. That was a joke, right? All right. It's a special day, an important day for a Boston institution. A Boston institution that for a half-century has proven what grit, determination, and focus can get you. A Boston institution that has led the way in making college available to all, not just those who could afford it. A Boston institution that today has a national reputation of what an urban public higher education campus can be and is capable of. I'm going to say it as simply as I can say it today, folks. UMass Boston makes our city and our Commonwealth very, very proud. Today, I bring you the greetings of our Governor, Deval Patrick, and the well wishes of our entire administration as we celebrate where UMass Boston is today. It's important to remember where it came from. Right down the road here, we can almost see it. In 1964, our nation was changing. We were still mourning the loss of a president we lost in the prime of his life. The civil rights movement was gaining traction after a long fight for equality. And the United States military had troops on the ground in Vietnam. When the idea for this university came to life in 1964, walking down the street, you heard the sounds of the Beatles. You heard Roy Orbison blasting from 1964 Chevy Impalas. Or maybe you heard a few of my favorites, like The Chapel of Love by the Dixie Cups, or Chuck Berry's No Particular Place to Go. Or perhaps Curtis Mayfield and the Impressions, Keep On Pushing. Symbolic, isn't it? Today, over analog signals, although analog's been replaced by digital, today we have Taylor Swift and Iggy Azalea as we drive out to the campus. of UMass Boston. In 1964, Gino Cappelletti of the Boston Patriots was the American League's MVP. And in 1964, a young man named Cassius Clay defeated Sonny Liston in the 7th round of the World Heavyweight Championships. Our country has changed, and so has this university. With roots as a commuter school, this university has evolved into a destination school that serves students from all backgrounds looking to create a future. From Park Square, just steps from here, to Columbia Point, UMass has become a beacon for the youth of this city. As the sun rises each morning over that beautiful peninsula, so too do the hopes and dreams of the students who we serve. This university is more than just a school. Look around you, the people that we have here representing us, more than just a school. It's people. It's the gateway to the American dream. And that American dream that in 1964 would have been out of the reach of many of the students who we enroll today. But in 50 years, because of places like UMass Boston, Massachusetts has become the educational model for which every other state operates or aspires to. We lead the nation and we set the trends. And UMass Boston is a major part of that. Today on your campus, there is new energy. New buildings are serving our students' needs in ways that would have been possible to think of just 50 years ago. But perhaps, most important, this campus more than any other, and no disrespect to our friends and colleagues, but this campus more than any other takes enormous pride in serving some of the best students our urban schools have to offer. It's like people like Charlie Desmond and Joan Becker and Keith Motley who have made that possible, and I know that intricately well, having taught at the Burke and served as the headmaster at South Boston High School. This place puts its money where its mouth is like no other. UMass Boston places value in its diverse student body. The university also understands its obligation to give back and to work with our K-12 schools. And when UMass partners with anybody, it's a signal from a national leader that you too count. At UMass Boston, community is not just a word, it's a philosophy, it's a brand, and it works. UMass Boston is driven by a deep understanding that success comes from hard work and determination, and that is why we continue to grow. At the end of the day, here is all you need to know. UMass Boston is a world-class institution. Congratulations on 50 wonderful years in higher education. We can't wait to see what you can accomplish in the next 50, but we sure it will be bold. Thank you.
Next up, we have the Honorable Robert Travellini, who has served this Commonwealth well as its Senate President and also a wonderful alum of this great university. Come on up, Robert.
Thank you, Keith. The genius and the influence of the university continues to manifest itself in a variety of different ways. The most recent was this morning, and Keith referenced it in his remarks. He described to you the parade down Beacon Street, the assembly at the State House, the opening of the gates, things that are very unusual and very difficult to secure. But what he didn't tell you was we did it all without a permit. If you think back to the 70s, a time when I was so wet behind the ears I had a towel around my neck going to school, there was significant unrest, uncertainty, public discord, And it was the time that I entered Boston State and the UMass system to get an education. My father had just died. I was one of 5 boys. And we were a family of humble beginnings. The experience I had at that university allowed me, upon arrival, to grow comfortable in an academic environment, to achieve a level of confidence that I was going to be okay, and at a time of great confusion, I experienced some significant clarity in the direction my life was going to take. With professors like Winston Langley and Dan Rudston, they turned a fascination with politics into a realization that this is where I was going to go. And if I was going to do it, I better get it right. The tool set that I acquired on Huntington Ave only enhanced what I had learned in the small neighborhood schools, but being exposed to the diversity and to the opportunity inspired me. The cost of that education, for me, was peanuts in return for what I got. I have brothers that went to Harvard, Georgetown, Boston College, and nephews that have all gone to Tufts. We were the first generation to experience college education in our family. And when we sit at a family gathering, believe me, I can hold my own. But it all came down to the experiences, to the education, and to the belief that I now had the tool and the key that was going to open doors and provide opportunity. When I entered the Senate, I came into the chamber when my good friend was on the rostrum. He instilled in me an appreciation for the value of public education here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. When I became president of the Senate, Keith Motley made a visit. And I must confess that the passion, the energy, the commitment to the mission of the institution was overpowering. You're right. I think the secretary mentioned a Sunday morning celebration. In that capacity, he was a powerful advocate for higher funding in the university system, and he got it because the experience converted me to a believer and a beneficiary of a magnificent education that put me in a position to exercise judgment and power for those who were most in need. So I stand here today as a very proud and very grateful alum who never would have been able to aspire to the position that I held and continue to do well in this business, thank the good Lord, if it wasn't for the fact that at a time critical in my life, at a crossroads where I could have went either way, it was higher education, public higher education in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that gave me the tool set to be a success. And that's why I continue to support and will participate in and do whatever I can to expand upon the mission that Keith has so professionally and eloquently taken control of. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. We are so grateful to you. You made it easy to come into your office and made it easier to come after you into that office because I knew what the office is supposed to be. And they held it down as well for us. So thank you, thank you, thank you. You know, this gentleman is someone I'm so happy to see all of the time because typically I either see him when he was on his way to class or he was leading us out for commencement. But he's someone who has a unique opportunity to tell the story of this institution because he lived it. You know, I read about it in books. I was sort of an outsider looking in, someone who they've accepted as someone who has come along and been a part of that. So Professor John Tobin, come on up here and tell your story. And thank you for all that you do for our university.
This is a lovely day and a birthday day in a couple of senses. The only downside is there's no scrutiny over the sequence of speakers, and I had not expected to be placed beside and indeed behind Senator Travellini. I shall speak to the Chancellor later and see that he doesn't do this again.
Yes, sir, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I apologize.
That's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
All right. I have been asked to represent the faculty, senior and junior, tenured, non-tenured, and I'm not quite sure that my story is the subject of what I'm offering. I do want to say a couple of things about what happens on campus, particularly the very good balance between scholarship and teaching. You know, scholars, in my case, the world of Shakespeare, and my classes are full of conversation about folios and quartos and missing manuscripts, and of course Hamlet and Othello and Lear and Macbeth, and all their fictional and yet ever so real colleagues on the stage. Scholars have to believe that what they're doing is important, even very important, and sometimes in the dark of the night, all important. But it is certainly true that we all simultaneously have to remember that what happens in the classroom is important, perhaps very important, well, all important. In the case of Shakespeare or any of those literature courses that are focused on a single figure, the first move is to disabuse students of any excessive veneration of some mystical authority figure, especially when you think of, well, take Shakespeare. He's maybe a genius, but he's really only, or essentially, a young boy from the provinces who came to London and made good. Now, that's not a bad scenario for the students who haven't come quite so far as from Stratford to London, but sometimes Brockton or Braintree or towns to the west, and of course the city itself. It is still a good journey to come all the way to Columbia Point. I come from Roxbury and Mattapan, and I know that these parts of the city still are not acknowledged sufficiently by the press and by TV. I remember when it was a landfill, a place where people dumped all sorts of refuse. There's a Shakespearean link to that. You may know, and certainly my students know, when we talk about the origins of Shakespeare, we like to remember that Shakespeare's father, who had some successes and some economic reversals, was fined, heavily fined, when he was about 50 years of age for having a midden, M-I-D-D-E-N, on his property. A midden is a garbage pile, a trash heap. Well, of course, he cleaned that up, he paid his fine, and his eldest son turned out to be a rather good writer, by common consent, the most distinguished of Western civilization authors. And yet you can imagine that at times, walking to school and coming back to his house in Stratford, his feet stepped on that trash that his father hadn't swept away yet, and yet trash on his feet There was a lot in his heart, in his brain, that made him what he is. I think it's a very nice parallel, and my students in the Shakespeare class, I think, like to add it on the midterm and the final, and they get a little bit of extra credit. There's something about literature that helps us privately, emotionally. It serves as a consolation, and it serves as an inspiration. Very, very soon, we're going to have an election, and you and I know that the state and the country have real problems that have to be resolved. This consolatory power that literature has also an educative companion. And if you're looking to solve problems, basic problems, it doesn't hurt to read King Lear and to learn something about cooperative responsibility and patience. It's important to read Dickens for social justice. It's important to read Whitman for democratic equality. And not to put things always in the past, it's very, very important to read contemporary writers who have a myriad of moral insights that help us get through the day, and sometimes even to vote on Tuesdays in November. Toni Morrison, Alice Munro. So there is something about the humanities, about arts and literature that make us who we are. They build bridges between ourselves and only surfacely imaginary figures. And in that, walking across the bridge from ourselves reading and the text that we are focusing on, we see worlds larger than we had imagined and learn a good deal more about what makes up our own selves. So I'm very privileged to teach at this university. And I remember when it was moved from downtown Boston and not too far from the Common, right where we are, where you know, I know, the American people know, Ralph Waldo Emerson tethered his cow. A lot of people were sad to leave the old Statler building and the gas building. But going to the landfill, the peninsula, on Dorchester Bay, Boston Harbor, the Atlantic Ocean, not too far from Logan Airport, follows the arc of the development of UMass Boston. A city school with an urban focus has moved to being a city school with an urban focus and a global reach. And this has happened in the last couple of decades, and I think that, as the Chancellor has said, it is only the beginning. We're all very, very glad. We're all very, very lucky to be teaching here. The administration has been wonderfully supportive. The colleagues don't leave. Why is it that they don't leave? To better, higher paying, defining better as higher paying universities. And is it that they find, and with a lighter teaching load, is it that they stay because there is a sense of purpose on the campus? I think so. Is there a sense that this is a civilized place, a place that is welcoming, a place where one comes in the morning with a bounce in one's stride and certainly a lightness in the heart? None of my colleagues will go so far as to say they would willingly pay the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to pay them for doing what they are paid to do. They would not go that far, but it is something that indicates the pleasure of being here. This is a wonderful day. Happy birthday to us all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I see Trustee Jeff Mullen in the back. Jeff, thank you for being here today. I know that Senator Hart is out there and Councilor Linehan is out there. Thank you all for coming this day. And I also want to acknowledge Mrs. Joan Wright, Orville Wright's wife, one of our faculty members who's gone on to the ancestors. We have a wonderful celebration coming up in Orville's memory, coming up a couple Mondays from now. Let's come out and support that event. But I want to bring forward to you, and also our chamber singers, thank you for being up this morning, looking so good, sounding so good. I think I sound pretty good in the morning in the shower, but you know, you've topped that. I might just join you, don't tempt me now. But now, come on up here, Miss Swords, come on up here. I have the opportunity of sort of putting in front of you who should have been up here from the very beginning. One of our students, she's graduating this year. I'm going to have the honor of handing her her degree on the, is it the 30th? The 29th of May at the historic Boston Garden for our 50th celebration there. And so come on and give these people a taste of what our students do.
Hello, as he graciously said, my name is Andrea Soares, and I'm a senior this year. So let's see. I am one of the founding chapter directors here at UMass Boston of Strong Women, Strong Girls, and a proud member of the Office of Student Leadership and Community Engagement, or as we like to call it, OSLICE. It doesn't really make sense because of the letters of the words, but that's what we call it. So over the years, I have delved deep into my psychology major, explored public policy, and established a strong foundation in the UMass Boston community. I always wanted to understand how the human mind works and how policy works, because great policy is created by great minds, and you cannot have one without the other. When looking for universities, UMass Boston was always high on my list. I remember seeing 93% of students will find a job in their fields after a year of graduation. And let's just say that put my parents at ease that were sending their baby off to college. I enjoyed the feeling and I enjoyed the views, and I felt at home instantly. I toured the university myself, did all the paperwork, and sent in my application. The decision to come to UMass was made on my own, and because of the passion I had for the school and my critical evaluation of it, my parents never even questioned my decision. I can admit that at times, when I'm in school and in class, I just am not in the mood to just focus on the chalkboard, because UMass Boston has sparked something in me to go out and do more. The more I learn in the classroom, about issues surrounding inequality, urban education, community, and female empowerment, the more I want to go forth and use this knowledge to better serve our beloved home. In the class, I'd always catch myself writing ideas and plans that could bring people together and foster change. UMass always had given me a strong, strong support system. I was welcomed with open arms and given endless opportunities that allowed me to grow personally and as a student leader. I can truly say that my success and growth at UMass has been 99.99% due to OSLICE and their belief in me. They have never doubted me, never pushed me aside, and never had forgotten about me. Sherrod Williams, who is the director, has believed in me more than I had believed in myself sometimes. All right, I got it. He allowed me to explore the makings of, I love this guy. All right. Woo. He allowed me to explore the makings, of beginning a chapter of an organization.
Go ahead, get it down. Because you know you have a crying chancellor too. So.
All right, get it. All right, so he helped me begin a chapter of an organization, mentor other students, and help me get a job at U Access, which I could not be happier working there.
What's U Access?
UACT is the most amazing office. We help students that need help with housing, food insecurity, financial insecurity. Shirley Fan-Chan over there. Woohoo! All right, I got it. Whew, all right. Thank you. All right, so back to Sharad. He has seen me struggle, cry, clearly, and laugh uncontrollably out of pure exhaustion, but still succeed through it all. No, all right, whew. No other institute could give me another Sharad, and no other institute could give me another Osites family. And that is why I am so, so, so proud to be a UMass Boston beacon. All right, I got it. Leaving UMass in the spring, I already have some fear on my mind, but it's not fear that I won't be prepared for what the world has to offer me, but I'm so afraid that I will not be able to find such an amazing, diverse, and supportive community as I have found here at UMass. Having UMass Boston as my university has given me the opportunity to start a new organization on campus, travel to campuses, be a part of the Social Justice Institute, travel to Panama, study leadership, and do community engagement, earn an internship at the Epiphany School in Dorchester, win 2 awards, and most importantly, I will be receiving my undergraduate degree this spring. Thank you.
Good. So the Chancellor's not the only one that gets emotional about the work that we do here. We all have that emotion, and so thank you. We've all been in your space where we're so grateful for it. As the Chamber of Singers come, I want to again thank all of the chancellors that are here today, but also to our team of leaders here at the university. They've been so helpful. Our provost is here. Could I have our leadership team stand up for a moment, please? The provost and Ellen and all the vice chancellors. And can I have the deans stand up? Can I have the department chairs stand up? Can I have the faculty members stand up? And staff and students stand up? Give them a round of applause. This is the University of Massachusetts. And now that group that can't wait to move into the new building as it comes forward. Academic Building number 1. Needs a name.
Thank you, Chancellor. The song we're going to do is Jambo Rafiki Yangu Kawaida Umefahamu Nisefahamu Wewe ni Mwema. That means, welcome, my friends. Always remember me, and I will remember you. Always understand me, and I will understand you. You are so wonderful. Our soloists are Natasha Kotomori. She's a senior music major, and Adam Ogello is a sophomore majoring in English and environmental science.
Thank you, thank you. Now we're also in for a special treat. As I mentioned earlier, it was in 1964 that our governor at the time, Endicott Peabody, was the one who signed into legislation the University of Massachusetts, Boston. We're so grateful today to have Robert J. Peabody here with us. So come forward. He has a presentation that he would like to make to the university.
Thank you. Actually, I do have a presentation, but I have a few remarks first. But so hold your horses. But Chancellor Motley, no hug for me?
Hey, because he has on my suit.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. President Corrett, Chairman Thomas, Chancellor Motley again, Secretary Malone, Mrs. Kennedy, and of course, President Mrs. Bulger. Nice to see you again. I speak today on behalf of my late father, Endicott Chubb Peabody, who was the governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in 1963 and 1964, and the signatory, as you've heard, of the legislation that established the University of Massachusetts in Boston on June 18, 1964. My father served just 2 years as governor, so by the time he took the oath of office in January 1963, there wasn't much time to accomplish his rather ambitious legislative goals. In fact, 18 months later, mid-1964, my father's attention had turned to re-election and a bitterly contested Democratic primary. Nonetheless, from the beginning of his term, Governor Peabody made public education a priority. I suspect that because of the education that he received, Harvard College and Harvard Law School, he was determined to ensure improving public education for all the Commonwealth students, and in particular, to sustain UMass as the elite academic state university that its founders envisioned, and which my father and many other politicians and state office holders strongly believed young people of the Commonwealth richly deserved. To that end, he pressed the legislature and received larger and larger appropriations for UMass during both years of his term. My father's commitment to UMass went even further. I recall more than one trip that my father, mother, and I, age 8, made to Amherst to stay with then UMass President John Lederle. My parents went to Amherst to tour the campus, meet with faculty and students, but also to demonstrate publicly his administration's genuine commitment to UMass and higher education. That fall, when UMass football came to play at Harvard Stadium, my father sat on the UMass side, and he cheered for the Minutemen, not his alma mater. A very tangible and public gesture of support for UMass and public education in the Commonwealth, considering my father was one of Harvard's greatest football players, an All-American guard in 1941, and a member of the National College Football Hall of Fame. The Boston Globe thought so too, running his picture on the front page of the Sunday Globe, sitting right next to President Letterly. In 1963, when State Representative Bob Quinn, already mentioned today as the great Bob Quinn, and State Senator George Keneally joined forces to sponsor legislation for a Boston campus of UMass, my father, without hesitation, endorsed their cause. In step with Quinn's and Keneally's vision for UMass Boston, my father believed that the sons and daughters of working families living in and around Boston deserved access to a UMass college education. But in Boston, Amherst was 100 miles away, and in 1963, UMass had to turn away over 1,200 Boston high school students because it didn't have the dorm rooms to accommodate them. Graduating seniors from Boston area high schools needed an affordable college education where they could attend either day or night classes and still live at home. In other words, a commuter campus, or as Bob Quinn aptly put it, and as our Chancellor mentioned already, quote, a place where city kids will trip over opportunity for higher education. Still, plans for a Boston campus of UMass faced stiff opposition back then. UMass's faculty and administrators feared losing precious public resources to a rival Boston campus, and many of Boston's private universities worried that a UMass Boston would draw top-flight students away from their own incoming freshman classes. Nevertheless, appropriations to establish a Boston campus of UMass passed the legislature handily on June 16th, and my father signed the bill 2 days later. $200,000, a princely sum 50 years ago, in seed money was also appropriated to hire new faculty, recruit a freshman class, and locate space to hold classes. And just 1 year later, in the fall of 1964, UMass Boston, actually 1965, UMass Boston opened its doors to 1,000 new freshmen at the old Boston Gas Building, which you've heard about, just around the corner from here. And as I walked from the subway today, I noticed it's now about to be luxury rental condos. In closing, I'd like to say I know my father would be very proud of UMass Boston today, and for the part he played in making it a reality for the thousands, the tens of thousands of students it has educated, and the rewarding careers and fulfilling lives it helped forge over these past 50 years. On behalf of my father and mother and his worthy legacy as governor of this great Commonwealth, happy birthday, UMass. And I actually I have a presentation to make, and I want to call up, obviously you're here, Chancellor Motley, but also President Corrett and Chairman of the Board of Trustees, Chairman Thomas. And I have in my hand a black and white giant photograph of the day my father, Jud Peabody, signed the legislation authorizing and providing the appropriations for UMass Boston. And he's surrounded, it was in the governor's office in the corner where he kept his desk, and you'll see the various trustees. Fred Troy over here on my right, John Letterly at the time, the president of UMass, I think Joe Healy, Bob Gordon with the glasses, Lloyd Thompson, and lastly Louis Lyons, the news reporter for Channel 2. And as I look at this picture, I see my father's great expression. It looks like he's about to tackle the entire UMass backfield. And so really on behalf of him and my family, but more importantly, all the faculty and all the students and all the staff and all the administrations who've been part of UMass Boston for these last 50 years, we all give this to you, three of you, to put in a very appropriate place and to look back on these last 50 years as a job well done.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
So why don't we move out to this way? We can take a quick break.
slide down some,
We
yeah.
can all get in here, right?
Come on up here.
More to the right. Thank you, Professor.
Tilt it.
Do what Harry says.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Nice to be here. I bet you like the football story.
I love that.
I remember thinking of,
Now.
I'm sitting on the UMass side. So.
Here you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. All the best.
Thank you. While she's carrying it away, Dusty, thank you for all of your help today, you and your organization, for making this a wonderful day. Trustee Nolan O'Brien, stand up for a minute. One of our students who's doing a fantastic job as our student trustee. Thank you. So proud of you. Thank you so much. And as we come to the close today, we have a special member of our family who's going to come to sort of wrap this up for us. This great woman. Come on up here, Vicki. What I love about this young lady right here is she calls and she asks, what can I do? Then she calls and she asks, what can I do? Then she calls and she asks, what can I do? And when you tell her what she can do, she comes and she does it. The first thing was to help us shepherd onto our community one of the most majestic and wonderful opportunities for learning that's going to happen in this great Commonwealth and beyond, the Edward M. Kennedy Institute. We're so proud of that. But also it means that her presence around the university will be something that will happen more often, and when she comes, as she'll do today, we hope that she'll deliver the kind of messages that hit our soul. And so I bring you today Dr. Victoria Kennedy.
Thank you so much, Chancellor Motley, for that very warm, kind introduction, and thank you for your leadership of UMass Boston. Before I recognize the dignitaries, other dignitaries who are here today, I would just like to say, aren't our musicians unbelievable? Please join me in giving them a round of applause. You all are fantastic. President Corrett, happy birthday. Chairman Henry Thomas, thank you both so much for your leadership and great work at UMass. And thank you so much for your leadership and service, along with Chancellor Motley, on the board of the Edward M. Kennedy Institute for the United States Senate. Former Senate President Robert Travellini, it's always wonderful to be here with you. Andrea, thank you. Thank you for your remarks, and thank you for reminding us all why we love UMass Boston so much and why we're all here today. It's so great to be with you. Thank you, Professor Tobin. It was great to be here earlier with Secretary Malone. Thank you so much, Mr. Peabody. I'd like to recognize very much the president of the Edward M. Kennedy Institute for the United States Senate, Dr. Jean McCormick. Thank you, Jean, for your leadership. Our executive vice president, Dr. Bill DeWalt. He's our executive vice president and a museum director. It's great to be here with Chancellors Saba Swamy and Michael Collins. President Bulger, there would be no Edward M. Kennedy Institute for the United States Senate without you. You had the vision very early on. Mary Bulger, great to be with you. Angie Motley, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, what an honor it is to be here speaking today, celebrating 50 years of the University of Massachusetts, Boston. To be 50 again. The celebration of your birthday reminds me of my entrance into the Boston scene when I was the 38-year-old bride of the senior senator from Massachusetts. For some reason, every news article felt compelled to add my age after every reference to me. Victoria, 38. Ted, avid sailor that he was, felt that it made me sound like a sailboat. like a Hinckley 38. So every year, like clockwork, I watch the number increase. Victoria, 39. Victoria, 40, and so on. Ted loved to tease me about it. When I became Victoria 50, I looked at Teddy and I said, "Bring it on, baby. I am really a yacht now." Well, UMass Boston, you're really a yacht now. And anyone who has a chance to take a ride with you is lucky indeed. As Boston's only public university, you help tens of thousands of young people and not so young people access the promise of a college education. As Chancellor Motley has proudly said, this university community looks more like Boston and more like the nation than any other school in the region. Nearly half of the students are men and women of color. Most are the first in their families to go to college, and all are strivers, the living embodiment of the American dream. As we celebrate today, and as all the speakers have reflected on, we look at the time of the birth of this great university, the second jewel in the crown of the UMass system. 50 years ago, our nation was in the midst of growing political turmoil, civil rights activism, and urban unrest. Our president had been killed. Young people and civil rights workers and leaders had lost their lives in the struggle for equal rights and voting rights. Our involvement in the Vietnam War was escalating, but we were also making progress. Because of presidential and congressional leadership and the incessant work of courageous activists, a filibuster was broken, and a national civil rights bill was passed and signed into law. Medicare was on the cusp of becoming the law of the land, guaranteeing seniors health care as a right and not a privilege. Open access to voting rights for all Americans, regardless of race, was in the forefront of the nation's consciousness and would become the law of the land the next year. There was a new awakening in the land that the old ways would not do, and Massachusetts was no exception. There was a demand here for increased access to affordable higher education. Governor Peabody and our state legislature listened and took action. And the rest, as they say, is history. So what will the next 50 years look like? Mark Twain famously said, "History doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme." It's very meaningful, I think, that we're celebrating today on the Boston Common, the town square of America's revolutionary city. This is the place where Boston residents assembled in 1713 to protest food shortages in the city. The place where the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. spoke in 1964, 50 years ago, on the need for racial justice. The place where Boston area students gathered in the rain just a few nights ago to show solidarity with pro-democracy protesters in Hong Kong. Across the centuries and across the oceans, there is a universal truth that ties these events together. That concerted, incessant action has the power to change the tide of history. That the people are indeed the source and the force to change the status quo. Democracy is not easy. It demands something of us. For democracy to work and flourish, we must be involved, engaged, and active citizens. That means holding our leaders accountable. But it also means holding ourselves accountable. My late husband, Ted Kennedy, once said, "Across history, Americans have risen to great challenges and responded in times of need. And America is America today because of their countless acts of compassion and commitment. I believe he had it exactly right. For the challenges we face are great, but our collective will is even greater. I see it in so many at this great university. Last year, UMass Boston students completed over 25,000 hours of service for 127 organizations. They distributed over 24,000 pounds of food to needy families in Dorchester, creating over 17,000 meals for those in need. A tremendous achievement. They held themselves accountable. They took responsibility for the good of their community. But there's another part of the citizenship equation. We must also hold our leaders accountable. We are living in an extraordinary time in history, a time that calls for extraordinary leadership. We're fortunate that here, in Boston, in Massachusetts, our mayor, many of our elected representatives in the State House and in Washington have been visionary and bold. But we can't take that for granted. We need to participate and vote and not outsource that decision about who will lead us to someone else. This is our future. This is our present. The negative effects of gridlock and inaction in Washington sadly have trickled down to the state and local levels, causing more and more people to lose faith in government. A recent poll found that 39% of Americans believe that the best thing about Congress is that we can kick them out. Another survey found that only 36% of Americans can name the 3 branches of government enshrined in the Constitution. Worse, 35% can't name even one branch. And if you don't understand how our system of government works, or if you're turned off by how it's working, then you are far less likely to vote. And that spells disaster. As you well know, voter participation is the key to a functioning democracy. Right here, home of the shot heard round the world that began the American Revolution and ultimately gave birth to this great nation, only 16% of Boston voters participated in the primary elections last month, one of the lowest numbers ever recorded. That must change. We must turn the tide, and we can, through action, concerted, steady, incessant action. Oliver Wendell Holmes said that we all should be part of the actions and passions of our time or risk not to have lived. He also said that when we were young, our hearts were touched with fire. The context was different, but the sentiment was the same. We must be involved, find our passion and go for it, whether we're young, old, or somewhere in between. We can make a difference. We must make a difference. My passion is to bring my husband's dream of the Edward M. Kennedy Institute for the United States Senate to life. He wanted to inspire visitors, especially students, to participate in our democracy. He wanted their hearts to be touched with fire. And he wanted that visitor experience to take place on the campus of UMass Boston with its vibrant, multicultural educational environment. The Edward M. Kennedy Institute represents a new model for civic engagement, using interactive learning to teach visitors about our government through an in-depth understanding of the United States Senate. It all begins with our full-scale recreation of the United States Senate chamber. You heard me right. We have created a full-scale replica of the Senate chamber. It's going to knock your socks off. My husband believed that by stepping into the role of a senator, drafting legislation, negotiating, amending, and ultimately voting on legislation in the chamber, experiencing the majesty of the place, participants would learn and be inspired. And he hoped that maybe, just maybe, they would grow to love and respect the Senate and its power to effect positive change the way he did. We've worked with video game experts to make the simulated Senate experience fast-paced and lively. The participants will have the best of technology for research, but the essence of the experience is face-to-face negotiation and compromise. Participants will learn and experience how to come together to reach common ground, something Edward M. Kennedy did so well. Years ago, I remember standing at a window on the 7th floor of the JFK Library with my husband and looking down at a plot of land where the Institute would be. As we looked out that window, Ted pointed to a tree and said to me, "That's where the Senate chamber is going to be." We stood there for a moment and envisioned what it would look like. A glittering, full-scale replica of the U.S. Senate right here in Boston. And today it stands exactly where Teddy dreamed it would. It stands for the power of democracy, of popular participation in our government, of raising our voices to keep families safe and keep our economy strong, and keep our country secure and keep our leaders accountable, just as people have always yearned to do in this country and on every continent. As we saw in Boston Harbor 300 years ago, as we're seeing on the streets of Hong Kong today, and as we see over and over as citizens gather on Boston Common, once that spark is lit, never underestimate the power of a group of committed citizens to change the course of history. I invite you all to visit us on Columbia Point when we open our doors to the public this coming March, right on the spot where Teddy pointed to that tree. The institute that bears his name is a living laboratory of democracy for our students and all of our citizens, right on the campus of UMass Boston. And so today, as we celebrate the 50th anniversary of your founding, here in this place of citizen action, I want to close with a birthday wish, a birthday challenge for the entire UMass Boston community. Please vote on November 4th. Whatever your party, or if you're unaffiliated, please vote. If you're not yet registered to vote, there's still time. The registration deadline is October 15th. I can't think of a better way to honor the spirit of the founding of this outstanding university. There are more than 16,000 students who attend UMass Boston and many more members of the faculty and administration. Just think of the power you have to make change and make a positive difference. Just think of the mark you can make on history. Thank you for allowing me to be part of this special celebration.
So as the chamber singers are coming to close, again, I want to say thank you. Charlie Desmond, stand up. Chairman of our Board of Higher Education and a member of our university community. Thank you for being here. So grateful to you. Coming forward to prepare for our alma mater. Then we will close and we're off to fun. Tent talks, bands, music, food, until about 5:30 today. And I think the permit, where is he at? I think our non-permits will wear out about then. They'll notice we're here. So we're looking forward to doing that. Thank you. So now for our alma mater. Look, come on. You should introduce it.
All right. My name's David Giso. I'm a part-time lecturer in the Performing Arts Department and conductor of the UMass Boston Chamber Singers. And the school's song, the alma mater, is based on an Irish folk song and was also adapted from the Boston State Teachers College alma mater, which became part of UMass Boston in 1982. Please stand for the singing of the alma mater.
UMass Boston, a torch in your hand, saw a crown on your brow, heard your voice of command, and we follow the lead of your bold guiding light toward knowledge and wisdom and fervor for right, toward knowledge and wisdom and fervor for right. Oh, that glow has burned bright through the passage of years, as our dreams dispelled doubts and our hopes assuaged fears, as our eyes watch the gleam with conviction and trust, and we learn to place faith in the good and the just, and we learn to place faith in the good and the just. May that torch never dim as life beckons us forth. May it shine like a jewel of fathomless worth. Like tall ships setting sail, may we steer evermore by that beacon of beauty and truth on the shore, by that beacon of beauty and truth on the shore.
And so, thank you for coming today, being part of this celebration. We're so grateful to you. We're so grateful to each and every one of you. We're going to process out of here. There'll be lunch. Other announcements? There'll be lunch, there'll be lectures. But anyway, thank you all for coming. We appreciate you. Happy birthday, University of Massachusetts, Boston. Let's go forward together and make a difference. Thank you so much.